Welcome back to Secrets Exposed. It's always a pleasure to have you with us. You're the reason these stories worth sharing. Tell us where you're watching from, city or country. We're amazed by how far these tales reach. To get daily new and amazing stories for you, subscribe our channel and press bell icon. All right, let's begin. The village was a ruin of dust and silence, broken only by distant bursts of gunfire that rattled like snapping branches. Captain Ryan Mercer crouched behind the jagged wall of a half-destroyed building, sweat carving streaks down his dirt-stained face. The air smelled of ash and metal. His unit had been moving through the skeletal streets for hours, scanning for hidden shooters, when the radio, strapped to his vest, crackled with static. He tapped his earpiece. "Command, go ahead." But it wasn't command. The voice was trembling, unsteady, nothing like the clipped military reports he was used to. "Captain Mercer, this is St. Vincent's emergency. Your daughter, Emily, is here." The words landed like a blow. For half a second, Ryan froze, his body rigid against the wall as if struck. His heartbeat thundered, louder than the distant firefight. The nurse's voice struggled to steady itself. She was brought in unconscious, multiple injuries. Blunt force trauma. "Sir," she whispered just one thing before she passed out. "Mom's boyfriend did it." Ryan's throat tightened. The dry air in his mouth turned to iron. He braced his forearm against the crumbled wall, staring at nothing. For a moment, he wasn't in this burning place. He was in a hospital hallway, watching his daughter's small chest rise and fall under white sheets. A shout yanked him back. "Captain, on your right." As one of his soldiers pulled him down before a stray shot rang past. Dust showered over them. Commander Holt, his unit leader, crouched beside him, scanning his face. He didn't need to ask. He saw the storm already brewing in Ryan's eyes. Holt had lost enough soldiers to know when one was about to crack apart inside. Ryan's hands shook against his rifle. He tried to focus on the fight, but the image of Emily, bruised, whispering those words, kept tearing through his vision. He whispered, almost to himself, "She's just a kid." Holt leaned closer, voice steady, commanding but not unkind. "You need to go." "I can't," Ryan rasped, though his voice lacked conviction. "We're pinned." Holt grabbed his wrist and pressed the rifle firmly back into his hands, as though anchoring him. His eyes locked on Orion's. "You've done your duty. The strike force is yours. They'll cover this sector. Go. Now." The order was simple, but it broke something inside Ryan. His world had always been mission first, but this was his daughter. The mission shifted in a heartbeat. Ryan rose to his feet, boots crunching on stone, ignoring the next wave of distant gunfire. He turned toward the armored transport waiting just beyond the ridge. His men, Cole, Diaz, the others, watched in silence. None questioned. They knew what it meant for a soldier to leave the battlefield carrying that look. As the vehicle roared to life, the dust whipped into his face, stinging his eyes. He gripped the rifle across his chest, but it felt different now. Not as a soldier's weapon, but as a father's vow. The battlefield noise faded behind him as the truck sped away, and Ryan clenched his jaw, whispering into the roar of the engine. "Hold on, Emily. I'm coming home for you." The flight home was a blur of steel corridors, red eyes, and the suffocating hum of engines. Ryan barely felt the hours pass. Every second away from his daughter stretched into a lifetime. By the time the wheels hit the tarmac, his pulse was a hammer in his throat. Sergeant Cole and Specialist Diaz had insisted on coming with him. They weren't family, not by blood, but they moved like brothers, silent shadows at his side. Together, they drove through the sleeping city, its lights flickering past like ghosts until the hospital rose before them, cold and bright against the night. Ryan pushed through the sliding doors and into the harsh fluorescence of the ER. The sterile air hit him, carrying that blend of antiseptic and fear he'd known too well from battlefield medbays. But nothing prepared him for the sight of Emily. She lay small beneath a white sheet, her skin pale as porcelain. Purple bruises marbled her cheeks, with faint traces around her arms, shaped in cruel patterns. Tubes and monitors whispered and beeped around her, fragile sounds that screamed louder than any explosion. Ryan froze, his chest caving in as though the air itself refused to let him breathe. A nurse stepped forward. Nurse Patel, calm but grave, met his eyes. Captain Mercer? She was semi-conscious for a few seconds. She whispered, "Mom's boyfriend did it." Then she collapsed. Her injuries, she hesitated, glancing at the bruising along Emily's ribs. They're not random. They're organized. Parallel strikes. Too deliberate to be a fall. Melissa's voice cut through the moment. It was an accident. Ryan turned sharply. Melissa, his ex-wife, sat slouched in a corner chair, makeup smeared, eyes glassy with tears. Her hands trembled against a coffee cup, knuckles raw and scraped. "She's clumsy, Ryan. She tripped down the stairs." Her voice cracked, but her words felt rehearsed, brittle. Ryan's jaw clenched. He wanted to shout, to demand how stairs could leave marks like belts, but Emily stirred faintly under the sheet. He held his tongue, forcing his fury down. He needed to listen, not explode. Not yet. The automatic doors hissed open. Two detectives entered. Detective Alvarez, older, measured, and calm, and Detective Pike, younger, sharp-eyed and skeptical. They moved with practiced quiet, approaching Melissa first. "Miss, we'll need your statement," Alvarez said evenly. Melissa launched into it, her words tumbling over each other. She tripped. "That's all. Derek wasn't even there. I told her to slow down, but she's always rushing." Her gaze flicked briefly to Ryan before dropping, like she was afraid of what he saw. A scent caught Ryan's attention. Sharp, chemical, not hospital bleach. It clung to Melissa's sleeves. He stepped closer, nostrils flaring. "Why do you smell like disinfectant?" he asked low. Melissa stiffened, then lifted her chin. "I cleaned the steps after she fell. There was blood. Do you want me to leave it there?" Before Ryan could answer, the doors hissed again. Derek walked in. He was composed, too composed, clean-shaven, crisp shirt, cologne cutting through the hospital air. His expression was sculpted grief, the kind that belonged on a stage, not at a hospital bedside. He crossed the room, knelt by Emily, and brushed a thumb across her knuckles. "Sweetheart," he whispered, soft enough for the detectives to hear. Ryan's fists tightened. Everything about the gesture screamed performance. Derek angled himself carefully, body shielding Melissa from the detective's view. Not protective, strategic. "I was at the gym," Derek said smoothly, looking up at Alvarez. "I can give you the exact times. She fell earlier. Melissa called me when she found her." Ryan caught Cole's movement near the hallway window, phone in hand, a short text flashing across Ryan's screen a second later. Front doorknob looked scrubbed. Bleach. Fresh. Ryan's stomach dropped. His gaze slid back to Emily. Bruises mapped across her skin like someone had planned them. The beeping monitor seemed to echo one truth louder than all Melissa's excuses. Someone had done this. Someone close. And the story they were weaving together wasn't just fragile, it was a lie. The ER waiting room had gone unnervingly quiet. Ryan stood near Emily's bedside, eyes locked on her still form, while detectives Alvarez and Pike circled Melissa with practiced calm. The hum of the machines seemed louder with every second, each beep tugging at Ryan's nerves like a wire pulled too tight. Melissa leaned forward, elbows on her knees, her coffee cup trembling in her grip. "I told you what happened," she said, her voice breaking in just the right places. She tripped. "She's always running around. You know how clumsy she is." Alvarez scribbled in his notepad, face unreadable. Pike, sharper, tilted his head. "So the bruises along her ribs, those came from the stairs too?" Melissa swallowed, eyes darting toward Derek. "Yes." She hit the railing. Ryan's jaw tightened. His hand twitched, wanting to slam down on the table between them. Instead, he took a step back, forcing himself to watch, to listen. If he lost his temper, Melissa would weaponize it, just like she always had in court. Then Derek cleared his throat and leaned forward, calm, collected, almost smug. "Look, detectives," he said smoothly. "I was at the gym last night. Checked the cameras, talked to the trainer. I was there for 3 hours. I didn't touch Emily. I didn't even see her until Melissa called me." His voice was so steady it could have fooled anyone who hadn't already seen the faint shift of his eyes. the way he measured each word. Derek wasn't defending himself. He was performing. Detective Alvarez scribbled again, but Pike wasn't buying it. His gaze narrowed. Funny. Most people don't keep such exact times of their gym sessions. Derek flashed a polite, almost rehearsed smile. When you've been accused of things before, detective, you learn to keep receipts. Ryan's stomach twisted. There it was, the admission without saying it. Accused before. The man was already poisoned, already dangerous. From a hallway, Ryan's phone buzzed again. A new message from Cole. Bleach still tacky on stair rails. Diaz found a scuff near the basement door, belt buckle height. Ryan read the words twice, ball rising in his throat. A belt. That's why the bruises looked parallel, patterned, not chaotic. He looked up, eyes burning into Derek's calm mask and Melissa's trembling performance. Melissa, noticing his stare, shot back. What? You think I'd let anyone hurt my daughter? Ryan didn't answer. His silence was worse than accusation. His eyes telling her he saw through the cracks. Nurse Patel entered quietly, adjusting Emily's fore. She gave Ryan a brief, almost reluctant look, then whispered just for him. Her injuries, they don't line up with a fall. Too deliberate. Like someone struck with something flat, multiple times. Ryan's fists curled at his sides. His military discipline screamed to hold position, to wait, to collect proof. But the father in him wanted to tear the truth out of the room, no matter what it cost. Across the room, Derek placed his hand on Melissa's shoulder. To anyone else, it looked supportive. To Ryan, it looked like control, his fingers tightening just a fraction too long. Melissa's shoulders stiffened under his touch, her lips pressing into a line. Ryan leaned closer to Emily's bed, his voice soft, almost broken. I'm here now, sweetheart. No one will touch you again. The beeping monitor answered in steady rhythm. Behind him, Detective Pike finally closed his notebook. We'll need to visit the house. Tonight. Melissa's eyes flicked wide for just a second. Fear, not grief. And Ryan saw it. A spark of truth breaking through her mask. The drive to Melissa's house was suffocating. Detective Alvarez's cruiser led the way, headlights cutting through the night. Ryan followed in silence, knuckles white against the steering wheel. Cole and Diaz rode with him, their presence steady but wordless. The closer they came to that house, the heavier the air seemed to grow, as if the walls inside already knew they were coming. Melissa sat stiffly in the back of the cruiser, arms folded, her eyes darting between the window and Derek beside her. She'd begged to ride with him. Her face was streaked with dried tears, but her jaw never unclenched. Derek's hand rested casually on his thigh, but his eyes betrayed a flicker of unease. When they reached the house, the porch light buzzed faintly. The smell of bleach hit before the detectives even stepped inside. Alvarez noted it quietly, pulling gloves from his pocket. Strong. Fresh, he murmured. The living room was unnaturally neat. Too neat. Toys stacked perfectly in a basket. Cushions arranged like a catalog. The kind of order that came not from daily life, but from frantic scrubbing. Detective Pike crouched near the staircase. His gloved finger brushed a groove in the wooden rail. He sniffed his gloves. Bleach still wet. He tapped the step. And here, see the uneven stain? Blood was here. Recently. Melissa's voice cut through the silence. I told you she fell. I panicked. I didn't want Emily to see the mess when she woke up. No one answered. In the kitchen, Diaz's flashlight beam glided over the linoleum floor. He crouched by the base of the basement door, fingers tracing a faint scuff. Metal. About waist high. Could be from a buckle. Ryan's chest burned. A belt. The same thought kept looping in his head. The bruises, the spacing, they all matched. He turned to Melissa, his voice low and sharp. Where's the belt, Melissa? Her lips parted, but no sound came. Her eyes darted toward the laundry room before she caught herself and shook her head. I don't know. Maybe Derek. Derek stepped forward quickly. Careful, he warned, his voice quiet but cutting. You don't want to make this worse for yourself. Detective Alvarez turned his gaze on him. We'll decide what makes it worse. In the garage, Ryan's eyes landed on something small but telling, a plugged-in dash cam dock sitting empty. He tugged at the glove box, which rattled slightly. Inside, beneath the car's manual, a tiny SD card lay wedged like someone had tried to hide in a hurry. Ryan handed it over silently. Alvarez bagged it, labeling it with calm precision. His face stayed unreadable, but Ryan caught the briefest flicker of interest in his eyes. Melissa's face drained of color. That's nothing. Derek uses it for parking accidents. It won't show you anything. Derek didn't look at her. He stared straight ahead, jaw tight, as if silently rehearsing the next lie. Back inside, Alvarez noted the inconsistencies. Blood on the stairs. Bleach still wet. Belt scuff at the basement door. Dashcam SD hidden in the car. You call this nothing? Melissa folded in on herself, hugging her arms to her chest. You're twisting this. You always twist everything. Ryan stepped closer, voice calm but dangerous. No, Melissa. This time, the evidence speaks for itself. The house suddenly felt alive with secrets. Every clean surface, every scrubbed rail, every forced tear, it all screamed cover up. For the first time, the mask Melissa wore seemed to crack, just for a second, and Ryan saw the flicker of something darker beneath her grief. Detective Pike zipped the evidence bag. His voice was flat, final. We'll see what's on this card. And if you're telling the truth, you've got nothing to worry about. But Melissa's silence, her tight jaw, and Derek's refusal to meet anyone's eyes told a different story. And Ryan knew, deep down, that when that card was played, the truth waiting inside would be far worse than anything Melissa had dared to admit. At the precinct, the lights were dimmer than the hospital, but the air was just as heavy. Detective Alvarez slid the recovered SD card into the evidence laptop while Pike hovered over his shoulder. Ryan stood behind them, arms crossed, his chest tight with anticipation. Every breath felt like it carried 1,000 pounds. The screen flickered. Audio loaded first, static breaking into muffled voices. Derek's voice came through, low, irritated. Melissa's voice cut sharp, tense. Money, Derek. You promised. I told you. I'm working on it. You're late again. Don't ruin this for us. The sound cut off in a burst of static. No video appeared, just the jagged waveform of broken audio. Pike cursed under his breath. Corrupted file. Someone tampered with it. Melissa, sitting across the table, leaned forward. Her hands trembled against her lap, but her voice came quick, too quick. That's just a fight. Couples argue. You can't twist this into something it's not. Ryan studied her, the way her eyes darted toward the exit like a trapped animal. She wasn't shocked about the recording. She was worried it had been found at all. Alvarez closed the laptop calmly. Maybe, but tampering tells us someone had something to hide. He looked between Melissa and Derek, his gaze heavy. And right now, you're both sitting in it. Derek leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms. I told you already. I wasn't here. Check the gym cameras, check my trainer. I can prove it. Melissa's eyes snapped toward him. So what? You're saying this was me? Her voice cracked into a sharp laugh. Do you hear yourself? Derek didn't answer. His silence said enough. Ryan clenched his jaw, forcing down the urge to slam his fist into the table. Every second wasted on their excuses was another second his daughter lay unconscious, bruised and broken. Back at the hospital, Ryan returned to Emily's room. Nurse Patel adjusted the monitors, her voice low. The bruises they line up too neatly. It's like someone struck her, stopped, then struck again. Not wild, not clumsy, organized. Ryan brushed his hand gently over Emily's arm, his fingers ghosting the purple marks. His voice caught in his throat. She told you Derek did it? Patel nodded softly. Yes, clear as day. Ryan looked at his daughter's fragile face, her chest rising in shallow breaths. He wanted to believe it was that simple, that Derek was the monster and Melissa just blind. But the patterns kept circling in his mind. The bleach, the belt-height scuff, the SD card hidden. Melissa scraped knuckles. The scent of disinfectant on her sleeves. Organized, he repeated quietly, as if the word itself held the key. A soft knock came at the door. It was Mrs. Green, the neighbor from next door. She held a casserole dish wrapped in foil, her face etched with worry. I'm so sorry about Emily, she whispered. I didn't know if I should say anything, but She hesitated, glancing at Melissa, then back at Ryan. Last night, I heard yelling. More than one voice. Not just Derek's. A higher one, too. Angry. I think it was Melissa. Ryan froze. His chest felt like it was splitting open. Mrs. Green shifted uncomfortably, wringing her hands. And I noticed something else. Earlier today, Melissa carried laundry to the basement. I saw her through the window. She had something folded in her hands. It looked like a belt. Ryan's world narrowed. The belt. The bruises. The parallel marks. His daughter's whisper echoing in his head. Mom's boyfriend did it. But now the truth tangled deeper. If Melissa's voice had been in that fight, if Melissa had been the one holding the belt, then Emily's words might not be the whole truth. Detective Alvarez stepped into the room, just then, his voice grave. We've got a warrant for Melissa's phone and financials. If she's hiding something, it'll surface. Ryan's eyes stayed locked on Emily, his heart pounding. He wasn't sure what terrified him more, the thought that Derek had hurt his daughter, or the possibility that her own mother had. The interrogation room smelled faintly of stale coffee and cold steel. Derek sat at the metal table, hands cuffed, his posture stiff but not defeated. His jaw flexed as Detective Alvarez read through the timeline again. You claim you were at the gym from 6 to 9. We've already pulled surveillance from the front desk. You checked in at 6, but there's a 2-hour gap between your check-in and check-out. Where were you? Derek's lips pressed into a thin line. His voice was steady but tense. I was in the locker room, talking with a guy. Didn't realize I'd lost track of time. Detective Pike leaned forward, his tone sharp. You expect us to believe you spent 2 hours chatting in a locker room? Not a single witness saw you inside during that gap. Derek shifted in his chair, eyes flicking briefly toward the one-way glass, where Ryan stood on the other side, fists tight against his sides. Ryan's gaze burned through the glass. He wanted to storm in, to tear the truth out of Derek with his own hands, but Alvarez's raised palm kept him back. Finally, Derek exhaled, his shoulders sagging just slightly. Look, I've messed up before. I got a record. That's why I keep track of times, why I'm careful. But I didn't touch Emily. I swear it. Melissa called me. Said Emily fell. I came straight here. On the surface, it sounded like a defense. But to Ryan, every word rang hollow. A man with a record, alone for 2 hours, conveniently absent when the assault happened. He fit the picture too easily, too perfectly. Later, back at the hospital, Melissa sat at Emily's bedside, a tissue crumpled in her hand. Her mascara had streaked further, her voice quieter than before. Thank you, she whispered to Alvarez when he updated her on Derek's questioning. I told you, he's dangerous. Emily must have been terrified. She brushed a strand of hair from Emily's forehead, her hand trembling. To anyone else, she looked like a grieving mother clinging to her child. For a moment, even Ryan faltered, his chest heavy. Could it be true? Could Derek have lost control, and Melissa was just covering out of fear? Nurse Patel adjusted the 4, glancing at Melissa with guarded sympathy. She'll need rest. But kids are resilient. Melissa nodded quickly, seizing the reassurance. See? She'll bounce back. I can't believe this is happening. Derek fooled me too. He said he loved her. Her voice cracked, a well-timed break that drew even Pike's skeptical eyes softer. Ryan turned toward the hallway, fighting the pull of her performance. His instinct screamed that something was still wrong, but his rational mind wavered. Everything fit too neatly. Derek's missing hours, his past record, Emily's whispered accusation. Cole caught Ryan's arm as they stepped outside. She's good, he muttered under his breath. Too good. That was rehearsed. Ryan's eyes narrowed. Yeah, but she's hiding something. I can feel it. Detective Alvarez joined them in the hall, rubbing his temple. We'll keep Derek in custody overnight. With his record and the time gap, it's enough to hold him while we dig further. If Emily wakes and confirms, it seals it. Ryan nodded slowly, though unease still twisted inside him. For the first time since he landed, there was a sliver of false comfort. Derek was locked up. Melissa was at Emily's side, crying into her tissues. For the moment, it looked like justice was lining up. But then Diaz texted from Melissa's house. Found a digital clock in the kitchen. Pinhole, lens behind a ring. Looks like a nanny cam. Slot's empty. Ryan's chest tightened. False comfort shattered in an instant. If there had been a camera running, then the truth wasn't about to rest on Emily's whisper alone. The text about the nanny cam replayed in Ryan's mind like a warning siren. He paced the hospital corridor, the fluorescent lights flickering above him, while Detective Alvarez spoke quietly into his phone. Pike leaned against the wall, arms folded, his expression sour. When Alvarez hung up, he approached Ryan. Diaz was right. The clock in Melissa's kitchen is a nanny cam model. Pinhole lens, hidden SD slot. Problem is, it's empty. Ryan's fists clenched. Empty because someone took it out. Exactly, Alvarez said. And whoever pulled that card knew what it showed. Ryan's stomach twisted. He thought of Melissa scrubbing the stairs, the sharp smell of bleach. He thought of Derek's too-perfect alibi, of Melissa's trembling knuckles and Emily's whispered words. Each piece was like a shard of glass. Alone they cut. Together, they formed something sharp enough to kill. Alvarez continued, his voice measured but tense. We've subpoenaed the company that makes the camera. If the device was paired with an app, some clips may be backed up automatically. Pike snorted. And if not, then we got nothing but bruises and suspicion. Ryan didn't answer. His eyes drifted to the hospital room where Emily lay unconscious, her small body dwarfed by machines. The thought that the truth of who hurt her might vanish with a missing SD card was unbearable. Later that night, Melissa stepped out of the room, her face pale, her lips trembling. She looked at Ryan with watery eyes. I heard they arrested Derek. Thank God. At least she's safe from him now. Her voice cracked, the kind of crack meant to sound natural. She dabbed her eyes with a tissue. You always thought I was a bad mother, Ryan. But I didn't know. I didn't know he was capable of this. Ryan studied her, every twitch of her face, every flick of her eyes. Her words slid off her tongue too smoothly. It wasn't the raw grief of a mother. It was the practiced rhythm of someone trying to convince not just others, but herself. Melissa's phone buzzed in her pocket. She pulled it out quickly, shielding the screen. Ryan caught just enough of the glow before she turned away. An encrypted messaging app, the kind criminals use to cover their tracks. Who's that? Ryan asked, voice sharp. Melissa shoved the phone back into her purse. A friend. Just checking in. Her answer came too fast, too defensive. Ryan's jaw tightened, but before he could press further, Detective Pike called him aside. We just pulled Melissa's financials, Pike said, his eyes narrowing. Look at this. Multiple transfers out of her account into an untraceable crypto wallet. Started 3 months ago, steady amounts, always after Ryan's deployment pay came in. She's been skimming off you, Captain, and she went to lengths to hide it. Ryan felt his stomach lurch. The betrayal cut deeper than the battlefield wounds he'd carried. This wasn't just negligence. This was deliberate. Planned. Alvarez's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, his expression darkening. The nanny cam company just confirmed. That camera was paired with Melissa's phone. Every clip was supposed to auto-sync to her account. Ryan's blood ran cold. So, she has the footage. Alvarez nodded grimly. Or she deleted it before anyone could see. For the first time, Melissa's mask slipped when she saw Alvarez staring at her. Her hand tightened around her purse, knuckles white, eyes darting toward the exit. Ryan stepped forward, his voice low, dangerous. Where's the car, Melissa? Melissa's lips trembled. She opened her mouth, closed it, then forced a shaky smile. You think I'd hurt Emily? After everything. But her voice cracked, not with grief this time, but with fear. And Ryan knew, whatever was on that footage was the key, and Melissa would do anything to make sure no one ever saw it. Morning light cut through the hospital blinds, cold and gray. Ryan hadn't left Emily's side all night. He sat in the chair beside her bed, one hand resting gently on her small fingers, watching the rise and fall of her chest. Machines hummed and beeped in rhythm, a reminder that she was alive, but fragile. Too fragile. The door creaked open. Mrs. Green, the neighbor, stepped in hesitantly with a thermos clutched in her hands. I brought coffee, she whispered. Her eyes landed on Emily, and her face softened with pity. How's she doing? Ryan gave a stiff nod. She's fighting. Mrs. Green lingered at the door, nervous. I don't know if I should even say this, but last night I heard yelling. More than once. A woman's voice. I think it was Melissa. Ryan's gaze sharpened. You're sure? She nodded quickly. And another thing. Yesterday morning, I saw Melissa carrying laundry down to the basement. She had something folded like a belt. She looked pale, angry. Not like someone cleaning up after an accident. More like someone hiding something. Ryan's stomach nodded. The belt. Again, the image returned. Emily's bruises, perfectly aligned, parallel. Not chaotic like a fall. Organized. Methodical. Before he could speak, Melissa entered, her hair unkempt, her eyes swollen from stage tears. She froze when she saw Mrs. Green. What are you doing here? I was just visiting, Mrs. Green stammered, retreating slightly. Melissa's tone hardened. You don't need to stick your nose into things you don't understand. Ryan stood, his presence towering, his voice low but sharp. She understands enough. She saw you. With the belt. Melissa's mask faltered for the briefest second, her lips tightening before she forced a shaky laugh. This is ridiculous. Everyone wants to make me the villain. I cleaned up blood, Ryan. That's all. You think I'd ever hurt my daughter? Her voice cracked, but it wasn't grief. It was fear. At that moment, Detective Pike entered, holding a folder. He placed it on the table with a heavy thud. Melissa, we pulled your phone records. Do you want to explain why you've been making regular crypto transfers every time Ryan's deployment pay hit his account? Melissa froze, her eyes widening before narrowing into defiance. That's none of your business. I have bills. I have a household to run. Bills don't get paid in anonymous wallets. Pike shot back. Ryan's pulse hammered. Betrayal burned through him. Not just as a father, but as a soldier who had sent his hard-earned pay across oceans, only for Melissa to funnel it into shadows. Detective Alvarez entered behind Pike, his phone in hand. His tone was calm, but his eyes carried weight. And one more thing. The nanny cam company confirmed the device in your kitchen was synced to your phone. That means you had access to every clip it recorded. Where's the footage, Melissa? The room went still. Melissa's face drained of color, her lips parting without sound. She glanced at her purse, then quickly looked away. Ryan's voice cut through the silence, cold as steel. What did you do with it? Melissa blinked rapidly, forcing out words. I deleted it. It was nothing. Just Emily tripping, like I said. I didn't want to humiliate her by keeping it. But her excuse collapsed under the weight of her trembling hands, her darting eyes, the sweat breaking along her temple. Everyone in the room could see it. She was lying. Mrs. Green stepped back toward the door, clutching her thermos tighter. I knew something was wrong, she whispered, almost to herself. Alvarez's gaze hardened. If you deleted that footage, Melissa, you obstructed justice. And if it shows what we think it does, you've done more than obstruct. Melissa's breath came faster, her eyes darting between Ryan, the detectives, and the neighbor. Her voice rose, shrill and defensive. You're twisting everything. Derek did this, not me. Emily said so herself, but Ryan saw it. The flicker in her eyes, the crack in her facade. Emily may have whispered Derek's name, but Melissa was the one hiding the footage. Melissa was the one who smelled of bleach. Melissa was the one neighbors had heard yelling. And deep down, Ryan knew the truth was no longer about who struck Emily. It was about how far Melissa was willing to go to keep it hidden. Detective Alvarez's office was dim, lit only by the glow of his computer monitor. Ryan stood stiff behind him, arms folded across his chest, eyes locked on the screen as a grainy video began to play. Pike hovered nearby, chewing absently on a pen cap, his expression tense. This came from Mrs. Green's porch cam, Alvarez explained, clicking the timestamp. Same night Emily was admitted. The footage was dark, the angle poor, but the Mercer house glowed faintly in the background. At 8:40 p.m., the front door opened. A small figure stumbled into view, Emily. She moved slowly, unevenly, as if dazed. A taller shape followed, shadow stretching long across the porch. The figure raised an arm. Something thin glinted in the faint light. Alvarez paused, zooming in on the reflection in a nearby window. The quality was rough, but the outline was clear, a hand gripping what looked like a belt. On the wrist, a bracelet caught the light, a single charm dangling from it. Ryan's pulse kicked hard. He knew that bracelet. He'd seen Emily make it with beads 2 summers ago, slipping it onto Melissa's wrist during one of her rare good days. Alvarez zoomed further. See the crescent scar, right near the thumb? Ryan's throat tightened. He remembered the scar, clearly. Melissa had burned her hand on the stove years ago. That scar had never faded. It wasn't Derek in that frame. It was Melissa. Pike leaned back in his chair, exhaling a low whistle. That's probable cause if I've ever seen it. Ryan's jaw locked. The puzzle pieces slammed into place. Emily's parallel bruises, the bleach, the hidden SD card, the financial trail. Melissa had been there, holding the belt. And Emily, terrified and coerced, had said only what she was told. Mom's boyfriend did it. When they returned to the hospital, Melissa was in the hallway, pacing, her phone clutched in her hand. She froze when she saw Alvarez approach. "What now?" she snapped, trying to sound weary, but her voice carried a tremor. Alvarez's tone was calm, but sharp. "We need you to come down to the station again. We found new evidence." Melissa's eyes flicked toward the exit for a fraction of a second before she forced a brittle smile. "Always more questions, isn't it? Fine. I have nothing to hide." But Ryan saw the tension in her jaw, the way her knuckles whitened around her phone. He leaned closer, his voice low enough only she could hear. "They saw you. The bracelet. The scar. You're done." Melissa's lips parted, her breath catching, but she quickly recovered, narrowing her eyes at him. "You don't know what you're talking about." Later, in the interrogation room, Alvarez laid out still frames from the footage. The reflection of Melissa's wrist. The charm bracelet. The scar. Melissa's mask slipped for the first time. She pressed her palms flat against the table, eyes darting between the photos. Her lips trembled before she forced herself back into composure. "That's not me," she said finally, her voice low and shaky. "It can't be. Derek must have," she trailed off, realizing the lie couldn't hold. Ryan watched from behind the glass, fists pressed against the wall. His gut twisted, not just from the confirmation of what she'd done, but from a memory of Emily slipping that bracelet on her mother's wrist, trusting her, loving her. Alvarez leaned forward, his voice steady. "Melissa, if you want to save yourself from the worst, now is the time to tell the truth." Melissa's hands shook violently. For the first time, the performance cracked, and what seeped through wasn't grief. It was fear, but she still clung to denial, her voice breaking. "You think you know what happened? You don't. You don't know what I was protecting." Ryan's blood ran cold at those words. Protecting? The truth wasn't fully out yet. And whatever Melissa thought she was protecting, whether herself, Derek, or something darker, was about to drag them all into deeper hell. The precinct conference room was silent except for the hum of the overhead light. Alvarez tapped his fingers against the table, his phone pressed to his ear. Pike paced near the window, muttering under his breath. Ryan sat rigid in the corner, eyes fixed on the evidence board, every nerve in his body strung tight. Finally, Alvarez lowered the phone. The nanny cam company responded. Even if the SD card was removed, the device was paired with Melissa's phone. By default, clips back up to the cloud server. Ryan's heart thudded hard. "So the footage still exists?" Alvarez nodded grimly. "We subpoenaed it. It came through just now, compressed but intact." He slid a flash drive into the laptop. The screen flickered to life. At first, only the Mercer kitchen filled the frame. The digital clock's pale blue ring glowed faintly against the dim light. A chair sat crooked against the counter. Then Emily appeared, small, nervous, her eyes wide, her hands clasped in front of her chest. Ryan leaned forward unconsciously, his nails biting into his palms. Melissa entered the frame. Her jaw was set, her movements controlled. In her hand, she carried a folded belt. She closed the distance to Emily slowly, too slowly, like a predator savoring the moment. "Say it," Melissa hissed. The microphone captured every word. "Say Derek did it, or I swear." The belt lashed out. Emily flinched, a sob escaping her lips. Another strike, then another. The sound of leather snapping against skin cut through the room. Ryan's chest caved in. He wanted to reach through the screen, to rip Melissa away from his daughter, but all he could do was watch. His throat burned with rage. The video continued. At 8:46 p.m., the back door opened. Derek stepped in, stopping cold at the sight before him. His voice cracked with shock. "What the hell are you doing?" Melissa turned, fury twisting her face. "Stay out of this." "She won't listen. She has to say it." She raised the belt again, but Derek surged forward, grabbing her wrist mid-swing. The belt snapped against the fridge instead. Emily stumbled backward, clutching her ribs. "You're insane," Derek growled, shoving Melissa's arm away. His voice wasn't kind, but it wasn't cruel either. It was desperate, panicked. "She's just a kid." Melissa spat back, her voice shrill. "You ruined everything. You were supposed to keep her in line." The two struggled for a moment, their movements frantic. Then the screen went dark. The feed cut out abruptly. Melissa must have yanked the power cord. Silence filled the room. Only the hum of the lights remained. Ryan's body shook. His breath came harsh and uneven, his fists clenched so tightly his knuckles whitened. The rage inside him was volcanic, ready to erupt. Pike broke the silence first, his voice flat. "Well, that ends the debate." Alvarez exhaled slowly, rubbing his forehead. Melissa orchestrated it. Emily's bruises weren't random. They were staged. Coerced. She was forcing her daughter to lie. Ryan's chest heaved, every breath a battle. The words tore out of him, raw and jagged. She used her own child as a weapon. Alvarez looked at him steadily. "We'll move on her tonight. No more delays." Ryan stared at the frozen image on the screen. The last frame before the feed cut, Melissa's face twisted in fury, belt raised high. He thought of Emily whispering in the ER, trying to say the words her mother had drilled into her, terrified that if she didn't, worse would follow. He thought of all the times Melissa had smiled sweetly in court, painting herself as the stable parent while he was deployed. The soldier in him burned for retaliation. But the father in him knew this fight wasn't on a battlefield. It was in a courtroom, in custody papers, in the walls of a hospital room, where a little girl finally deserved peace. Ryan lowered his head, his voice low, vibrating with fury. "She'll never lay a hand on Emily again. I swear it." But in the back of his mind, Melissa's last words still lingered. "You don't know what I was protecting." And Ryan couldn't shake the feeling that the nightmare wasn't over. Not yet. The hospital corridor buzzed with tension that night. Officers moved in quietly, avoiding a scene, their radios low. Ryan stood at the end of the hallway, watching Melissa pace outside Emily's room. Her purse was clutched tight against her body, her hair frayed from restless hands combing through it. She looked like a woman unraveling, yet still fighting to keep the mask in place. Detective Alvarez approached with two uniformed officers. "Melissa," he said, calm but firm, "we need you to come with us." Now. Melissa froze. Her eyes darted to Ryan, then back to Alvarez. "Why? I haven't done anything." Alvarez held up a still frame from the nanny cam footage. Her hand raised, the bracelet glinting, the belt mid-swing. "This says otherwise." Her face drained of color. For a moment, silence strangled the air. Then her voice rose, shrill, desperate. "That's not what it looks like. You don't understand. Emily lies. She manipulates. She wanted to hurt me." Ryan's chest surged with fury, but Alvarez lifted a hand, signaling him to stay back. The officers moved forward, one gently taking Melissa's arm. She thrashed against their grip, her voice cracking into hysteria. "I was protecting her," Melissa screamed. "You think Ryan cares? He was gone. Always gone. Who kept her fed? Who paid the bills while he played soldier?" Ryan stepped closer, his voice low but burning. "Protecting her? You beat her. You forced her to lie. You broke her." Melissa's eyes snapped to him, wild and glassy. "You don't know what I was protecting." The words rang out again, echoing through the corridor. For the first time, her tone wasn't defensive. It was raw, frantic. She shook her head violently, tears streaking her cheeks. If she told the truth, If she told anyone what she knew, they would have taken everything from me. You don't understand. Enough. Alvarez cut in, his voice sharp. You're done. The officers began to escort her down the hallway. Melissa twisted in their grip, her voice turning venomous. You'll see, Ryan. She'll tell you eventually. And when she does, you'll wish you never came back. Her words slashed through him, colder than any battlefield threat. For a moment, Ryan stood frozen, the implication gnawing at him. What truth was Melissa still hiding? What had Emily seen? Through the window, Ryan looked at his daughter. Emily stirred faintly, her lips twitching as if caught in a nightmare. The sight pulled him back from the edge. Whatever secrets Melissa thought she held, Ryan knew one thing. Emily's safety came first. Always. As the elevator doors closed around Melissa, her muffled cries echoing off the steel, the silence that followed felt heavier than gunfire. Behind the glass of the interrogation room, Derek slumped into a chair. When Pike showed him the footage, his face collapsed into his hands. I tried to stop her, he whispered. She said if I didn't play along, she'd tell the court I hit them both. I panicked. I thought I could keep it from getting worse. Cowardice dripped from every word, but there was truth too. He hadn't saved Emily in time, but he tried, however weakly, when Melissa's rage slipped past the line. Ryan turned away, disgusted. In his world, hesitation cost lives. In this case, it had nearly cost his daughters. Back in Emily's room, he sat beside her bed again, his hand gently covering hers. The beeping of the monitors was steady, reassuring, grounding him. He bent close, his voice barely above a whisper. You don't have to be afraid anymore. I'll protect you. From her. From all of it. Emily stirred, her eyelids fluttering. A faint sound escaped her lips, fragile, but clear enough to make Ryan's heart lurch. Daddy. His throat tightened, tears burning behind his eyes. Yes, sweetheart. I'm here. Her small hand twitched against his. Don't let her come back. Ryan bowed his head, voice breaking as he swore it into the sterile air. Never. She'll never touch you again. But Melissa's words still lingered in the back of his mind, festering like poison. You don't know what I was protecting. The truth had been dragged into the light. But the shadows Melissa left behind promised that one last twist still waited in the dark. The hospital room was quiet except for the steady beeping of the monitors. Emily's eyes fluttered open fully for the first time since the attack, her lashes trembling against pale skin. Ryan leaned close, gripping her hand as though letting go might break her all over again. You're safe now, he whispered. I promise. Emily's lips parted, her voice soft, cracked. Daddy, don't let Mommy come back. Ryan's throat tightened. He brushed a strand of hair from her face. I won't. She can't hurt you anymore. But Emily's small body tensed. Her eyes darted to the doorway, as if shadows themselves might drag Melissa in. She said, if I told the truth, they'd take me away. That I wouldn't see you again. Ryan's chest clenched. Melissa's poison had seeped so deep into her that even now she feared losing him more than she feared the pain she'd endured. He kissed her forehead, fighting to steady his voice. No one's taking you away from me. Not ever again. Detective Alvarez entered quietly, a folder under his arm. He gave Emily a gentle smile before nodding to Ryan. We've charged Melissa with aggravated assault, obstruction, coercion, and fraud. The footage is enough to bury her case. Derek's flipping. He'll testify. It's over. Ryan nodded, but Alvarez's eyes lingered on him. There's more. He placed the folder on the table, sliding it open. Inside were financial statements, emails, and transcript from Melissa's encrypted messages. Ryan skimmed them, his pulse quickening. Messages between Melissa and an anonymous contact. Plans, arguments. Words that cut through him like glass. If she talks, I lose custody. Ryan can't know. He'll fight for her. He'll win. Make sure she says Derek did it. It's the only way. Ryan's jaw locked. It hadn't just been cruelty. It had been calculated. Melissa hadn't been protecting Emily. She'd been protecting herself, her custody, her stolen money, her control. And she'd been willing to destroy their daughter's innocence to keep it. Emily stirred, her small fingers squeezing his hand. Daddy, was it my fault? The question shattered him. Tears blurred his vision, but he forced his voice steady. No, none of this was your fault. You did nothing wrong. You're the bravest girl I've ever known. Outside the room, Ryan's unit, Cole and Diaz, stood like silent sentinels. They hadn't needed to speak all night. Their presence alone was a shield, proof that this battle was over. When Melissa was led past the hospital later that day, shackled and broken, she caught Ryan's eye. For the first time, she didn't scream or deny. She just whispered hoarsely, "You don't understand what I sacrificed." Ryan met her gaze, his voice calm, final. "You didn't sacrifice. You destroyed. And now you'll never breathe near her again." Her eyes flickered, but the fight was gone. The officers led her away, the sound of the cuffs rattling like a door slamming shut forever. That night, Ryan sat by Emily's bed, the storm inside him finally beginning to quiet. She slept peacefully, her small hand curled around his. For the first time since the call in hostile territory, he let himself breathe. He thought of Holt's words, "The strike force is yours." It hadn't been about rifles or soldiers. It was about this moment, standing guard over his daughter, being her shield, her strike force, her home. As dawn broke through the blinds, Ryan whispered the vow aloud, a promise stitched into the marrow of his bones. "She'll never hurt you again, Emily, not as long as I'm alive." And in the quiet of that hospital room, for the first time, Emily's sleep wasn't haunted. The war was over.